The waves of history break on the Crimean shores once again, following the vote to separate the peninsula from Ukraine. Euronews visited Evpatorya, a small city around 60 kilometres from Simferopol. Its interesting ethnic composition reflects the Crimean mosaic of Ukrainians, Russians, Tatar and Jews. The idea of joining the Russian Federation is divisive, as the head of Evpatorya's business association explains.
For
23 years, Ukraine has been moving forward along the path of development. We were heading towards European values, freedom of competition, and improved human rights. Now I'm worried about what will happen to us. From what I see in the press and learn from conversations with friends, many of whom live in Russia, the best case scenario would be a halt in development in Ukraine. In the worst case, we will go backwards.
Alexander is half Russian and half Ukrainian. He says, in reality, many of the people who claim to be ethnic Russians actually have more than one single origin, just like him. He introduced us to the director of a local Izumrud, or sanitarium. These health and fitness centres were one of Crimea's big attractions during the Soviet Union and are still used by a variety of people today. This sanitarium belongs to the Interior Ministry. We've been told these centres provide 30% of the area's tourist trade, but this figure has not been confirmed.
The sanitarium's owner may or may not change. Perhaps it will be the Russian Federation's Interior Ministry. Or maybe it will go under the ownership of the Interior Ministry of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea. There have been medical health resorts in Crimea for a long time. People were coming for spa holidays during the Soviet era, and people continued to receive treatment under Ukrainian authority. No matter what happens now, I think Crimea was, is, and will always be a territory where people come to improve their health and to get better.
Что бы ни случилось сейчас, я думаю, Крым был, есть и будет территорией, на которой люди укрепляют свое здоровье и оздоравливаются.
This sanitarium was established during the Soviet era. Even though the centres continue to attract people from all over the former Soviet Union, people nowadays seem to prefer other kinds of tourist accommodation. Some people in Crimea want different types of investment in the tourist industry.
During the revolution, people said, that's it. We don't want to live on our knees. It's a case of survival of the fittest. Life is a competition and you have to roll with it.
The landslide vote in favour of joining Russia gave new momentum to the old Soviet-style sanitaria. In effect, for many voters, joining Russia means a return to the USSR. Many in the Crimean Tatar community boycotted the vote to separate from Ukraine. Dilara Yakubova is worried about the future of her business after the result of the referendum. She told Euronews, Crimea is not a ship you can just sail and dock in a Russian port, because today all infrastructure and communication is tied with Ukraine. If these links were broken one by one, Crimea could hypothetically unite with Russia. But firstly, you'd need a massive amount of money, secondly, an enormous amount of time, and thirdly, a support network in place when the money and time come together.
В-третьих, нужно, когда эти деньги и время придут, чтобы здесь кто-то остался.
Dilara invested about €1 million in the construction of a new and ambitious ethnic complex for tourists from the EU. Her aim is to offer a new way of looking at Crimea through the history of the Tatar community. But the 23 years with Ukraine were a bad experience for many locals, according to this doctor.
At the end of the Soviet era, I was very hopeful that we would have a bright future. But for me and people like me, our confidence in the Ukrainian government has decreased over the years. Why? Because I don't see any development. I work in the humanitarian sector. I am a doctor.
Pensioners Ismail Akim and Nadia Mustafa are Crimean Tatars. Ismail remembers firsthand the deportation of his community from Crimea to Central Asia in 1944. He was a child at the time. It was only during the final years of the Soviet Union, under the rule of Mikhail Gorbachev, that Tatars could finally return from more than 40 years of exile. But the memory is still alive.
I only want to be part of Ukraine, and that's it. They might give Ukraine 10 times as much money as it has now. It's just talk. If we become part of Russia tomorrow, they'll either give it or they won't.
Ismail introduced us to his Ukrainian friends, the Timchuk family.
Да вам салям алейкум. А вам не знаю, здравствуйте или как?
I've never been afraid of Russians, said Orisia.
The Russians call pro-Ukrainians derogatory names. They respond with derisive comments about the pro-Russians. But me, I have never used any of these insults.
Following the decision to join Russia, the Ukrainian and Tatar minorities formed a kind of alliance to counter Moscow's project to annex the peninsula. But some look back on the Soviet era with nostalgia, and in the eyes of a strong majority of Crimean people, a return to this time represents a very real project for the future, as these university students in Simferopol explained. We asked if they were for territorial integrity.
Yes, I'm for that. What do you guys think? I'm for Russia. I just want things to be calm and peaceful. The most important thing is that there's no war. Unlike those in Western Ukraine, we don't think the Soviet Union only brought tragedy and trouble.
At the moment, the real victim of this historical shift is the tourist industry. Most of the resorts here are empty. We went to Yalta, where this 5-year-old luxury hotel had no guests, despite the general manager telling us there are usually a lot of tourists at this time of year, particularly from Ukraine and Russia.